Two poems from the Penguin Anthology of 20th Century American Literature, edited by Rita Dove, that I would include in my list of poems that could save America, are The Mother by Gwendolyn Brooks and Oranges by Gary Soto. Both authors represent minority groups, Brooks as an African American and a woman, and Soto as a Mexican American. Including a diversity of voices in the literary canon is critically important and also allows works to appeal to a variety of audiences. I'm going to read each of these poems and then explain why I personally am drawn to them and what I think makes them such significant contributions to the field of American poetry. If you want to follow along in the textbook, the first poem I chose is on page 181. The Mother by Gwendolyn Brooks. Abortions will not let you forget. You remember the children you got that you did not get. The damp, small pulps with a little or with no hair. The singers and workers that never handled the air. You will never neglect or beat them, or silence or buy with a flute. You will never wind up the sucking thumb, or scuttle off ghosts that come. You will never leave them, controlling your luscious thigh. Return for a snack of them, with gobbling mother eye. I have heard in the voices of the wind, the voices of my dim-killed children. I have contracted. I have eased. My dimmed ears at the breast they could never suck. I have said, Sweet, if I seized your luck and your lives from your unfinished reach, if I stole your births and your names, your straight baby tears and your games, your stilted or lovely love, your tumults, your marriages, aches, and your death, if I poisoned the beginnings of your breath, believe that even in my deliberateness I was not deliberate. So why would I whine? Whine that the crime is other than mine, since anyhow you are dead, or rather, or instead, you were never made. But that too, I am afraid, is faulty. Oh, what shall I say? How is the truth to be said? You were born, you had bodies, you died. It is just that you never giggled, or planned, or cried. Believe me, I loved you all. Believe me, I knew you, though faintly, and I loved you all. Gwendolyn Brooks' The Mother is one of the first poems I ever read in an academic setting, and was instrumental in my decision to double major in English. I'm a big fan of confessional-style poems, even when they're from poets outside of the confessional movement, because of their frequent use of social change topics. Confessional poetry can be alienating to some, I suppose, but I firmly believe there's a confessional poem out there for everyone. The honest and emotional depth makes them relatable to a wide audience, and Brooks' The Mother is no exception. Her poem discusses abortion and the nature of motherhood and family. The topic of abortion has gotten a lot of attention in the media lately, so everyone is sure to have an opinion. Moreover, Brooks juxtaposes abortion with the speaker's economic status, which complicates the situation and introduces another level of reality. Poetry is often best utilized as a bridge to the discussion of other topics, and The Mother easily allows for this. Okay, now on to the second poem. It's on page 506 if you want to follow along in your textbook. Oranges by Gary Soto. The first time I walked with a girl, I was 12, cold and weighted down with 2 oranges in my jacket. December, frost cracking beneath my steps, my breath before me, then gone. As I walked toward her house, the one whose torchlight burned yellow night and day in any weather. A dog barked at me until she came out, pulling at her gloves, face bright with rouge. I smiled, touched her shoulder, and led her down the street, across a used car lot and a line of newly planted trees, until we were breathing before a drugstore. We entered, the tiny bell bringing a saleslady down a narrow aisle of goods. I turned to the candies, tiered like bleachers, and asked what she wanted. Light in her eyes, a smile starting at the corners of her mouth. I fingered a nickel in my pocket, and when she lifted a chocolate that cost a dime, I didn't say anything. I took the nickel from my pocket, then an orange, and set them quietly on the counter. When I looked up, the lady's eyes met mine, and held them, knowing very well what it was all about. Outside, a few cars hissing past, fog hanging like old cloaks between the trees. I took my girl's hand in mine for 2 blocks, then released it to let her unwrap the chocolate. I peeled my orange, that was so bright against the gray of December, that, from some distance, someone might have thought I was making a fire in my hand. A few months ago I had the pleasure of meeting and interviewing Gary Soto for an article about a local performance of a play he wrote. I'd read some of his poetry and other writing prior to then, but since then I've made a point to read as much of his work as I can. He's one of the most definitive Mexican-American writers, particularly for younger audiences, and his writing is always honest and realistic. He portrays life truthfully without ignoring the positive sides of things. His poem "Oranges" is a simple poem guaranteed to be appreciated by readers of all ages. It calls to mind memories of similar days spent with similar people. The entire poem gives the reader a feeling of nostalgia. Students can discuss the poem's imagery without fear of misinterpretation or irrelevance to their lives, and its storyline also allows for dialogue over the relationships and interactions people have with each other.